Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fiction or genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 3. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we open with, and it's always that heartbreaking thing when it's like, oh, here's a character death, and we're going to open the next episode. I mean, it's not like they showed you Joel's face or anything like that, but they made sure to show you the watch, so you are seeing his body. It's not the same, but it immediately makes me think of, was it 7? The beginning of episode 7 of season 1 of Squid Game opens with like, oh, this character's dead. Like, you knew he was dead, but we open with showing you their body without spoiling it for anyone that hasn't seen Squid Game. It just immediately kind of make think of that. Obviously, it's not as visceral because you saw that person's face, you didn't see Joel's face. I'm sure that's a lot different in the game too. Once again, his face was like bashed into a much worse condition than it was in the TV show. I also want to reiterate it. I do not remember the game that well. Even then, like I know maybe half of the game story, and even then, that was back in 2019. I watched someone play a little bit of it then, and I haven't seen anything of The Last of Us 2 since then. So, once again, other than some stuff I might know, but even that's not something I know for sure. My point is, I don't really remember much after like the immediacy after Joel's death. Like, cause we ended up later on getting this 3-month time skip, which we'll get to in a bit. But like that immediate aftermath of Joel's death, I don't remember that. And what that looked like in the game, and whether they did, like I said, the 3-month time skip. But you had someone already attending to the bodies, but then Tommy comes in to kind of take over, taking after Joel, and it's just like wiping his arm down, and all he can do is look at the watch, and he's just like talking to his brother, like, like look after Sarah, or like tell Sarah I said hey, or something like that. Because he's got to feel this immense guilt, and it's all these complicated feelings. So many died with the assault on Jackson, and now it's like, but also your brother died, but you weren't with your brother when that happened, so there's a little bit of guilt there, but you also can't put your guilt and your anger and your feelings above anyone else because you're on the council, and so many other people lost people too, so it's not like you're special in that regard. So you got to have a whole bunch of conflicted emotions in that moment. Because I did not remember this, but other people pointed out, those who are more familiar with the game have pointed out that the pairings were switched around for the TV show because Tommy was with Joel during that whole Abby situation, and Dina was with Ellie, because people were referencing the weed scene. I definitely remember the weed scene, but I thought that happened later, but I guess that might have been like a flashback thing while the whole Abby thing was happening. But either way, where basically what the scene between between Jesse and Ellie, that involved Dina. I didn't talk about it at the time because I remembered that. I might have referenced it. I don't remember. But I remember them getting high a little bit. But for whatever reason, I thought that was later in the game. But I don't know. So yeah. Then we cut to the hospital where people are being taken care of, including Ellie, and her waking up, remembering the final blow. Because that's all she saw. Like, when she came in there, like, she saw Abby on top of Joel, but like the beating had kind of basically paused the moment she came in there and saw Joel's body. And all she has in her mind is that final moment of Joel's, and she's just sitting up screaming because it's that thing. And someone else described it perfectly. That feeling of like when they were coming back with Joel's body at the end of 2, she's looking back because there's this look of, no, this can't be real. And so like she's still in shock, and she hasn't really had a lot of time to process it. I mean, by the time Jesse and them found him, like, she was cradling his dead body. And which I'm surprised I never even thought about the parallel at the time of like, right, kind of like Joel and Sarah in episode 1, even the beginning of the first game. But either way, it's just that it all hitting her all at once, and just not being able to shake it and seeing it over and over, and just being able to just scream because that's all she can, because it finally just caught up to her and it was just too much, and they basically had to sedate her. And so we skipped it 3 months later. Jackson is putting itself back together, but it's been 3 months and they're still not fully back together because they can't fully, it took a long time to build up to where they were and sustain what they were at. And now, for one, they burned through a lot of supplies. They lost a lot of people, got to rebuild a lot of infrastructure just to, rebuild, take care after the events of everything. So, but time for Ellie to get out of the hospital, but before she leaves, gotta have a talk with Gail. And Gail's like, "Okay, how are you?" And she's like, "No, I'm sad. I do miss Joel. I wouldn't, the last time we saw each other was the whole dance situation, the New Year's situation. He was at the porch. I wish I had talked to him, but not much I can do. Yeah, I will regret that we didn't get to talk." And then she's like, "Joel said something last time me and him talked. He said he wronged you." She's like, "I have no idea what that could mean." He's like, "All he would say is he saved you." And in that moment, Ellie pauses and she's like, "Yeah, I don't know what that could possibly. I wish I knew." And she's putting up this front, and Gail's like, "Oh, well, if only everyone was as healthy as you were." She's like, "Yeah, but there's plenty of other people that need your help when I don't, Gail." So Gail sends her on away, and she's kind of smiling, and that smile quickly disappears and just turns into that like stoic demeanor, and just kind of like, yeah, she's got to put on its front like she's okay, because she's like, "That's the only way I'm getting out of here, so I pretend I'm okay." And goes home, and that's got to be a whole complicated. I mean, there's no escaping that feeling, but everywhere you're going is a constant reminder, as there's like a row of flowers and messages left in front of the house about people saying how much they miss Joel, how much he meant to this community. And for her to go in there and just like, now it's like the house is quiet, because she doesn't even step into like her room in the garage. She just steps into the house just to kind of, it's like all the time I spent away from him. We weren't even technically living in the same house. I mean, yes, I was in the garage and it's connected, but it's still, we weren't living technically in the same house. She goes to her room, and I think for her it's probably a thing of however she left the room is exactly where it was left, because Joel probably left it hoping she'd move back in. And so next stop was Joel's room, and finds the box on his bed. It's his watch, the gift from Sarah, and the and his gun, and just her just kind of just going through the motions of it. And it's not until she gets to his closet and starts smelling his shirt that she breaks down, because she's just kind of like, it just once again just makes it that much more real. And then when Dina being there, she like wipes her face and trying to pretend like everything's okay. But then, like, yeah, obviously, she's kind of going through it again when Dina's like, "Yeah, I brought you cookies." "Oh, just because?" It's like, "No, because I'm about to tell you something that's really going to piss you off. I told the others I didn't know any information about the people who killed Joel. That was a lie." Because she was conscious during that portion of it. So she's like, "I know the WLF, the Washington, God, I'm already blanking on it. We'll just call them the Wolves. We'll call them the WLF. I can't remember what the LNF stand for, but she's like, I remember that. I remember most of their names." And for Ellie, it's like, "Why didn't you say anything? You wasted time. You've known this for 3 months and you've sat on it." She's like, "And if I told you, you would have pulled the plugs out of you and would have like crawled if it meant going after them. And I didn't want you to do that. Jackson had been under attack. We were still weak at the time. And there was going to be no convincing you not to do that." But Ellie just kind of calms down, because she knows, like, she understands where Dina's coming from, and Dina had the best interest. And also, it's like, right, I also don't want to like piss her off right now, considering she's the only one that has this information. Because she told Ellie, like, I didn't tell anyone. I want to make sure you were the first person I told. So they end up going to Tommy about this, but Tommy's like, with the state things are in now, he wants to go. He understands it. He's like, "Don't get it twisted." He's like, "That was my brother." Because she's like, "If it was you, Joel would have gone there," and he's like, yes, he would already be halfway there, because Joel did the same thing. I mean, this whole thing started we started with Joel's story, like after the 20-year time skip, it was him trying to find Tommy. That was his main motivator, and especially that whole conversation he had with Ellie. We do what we do for family. It's why he did what he did for family, Ellie. And it's almost for Ellie, it's like, right, I got to do this for Joel. This is for family. I got to get our lick back. But yeah, Tommy's like, "Don't get it twisted. He was my brother, so don't act like I didn't know him." And Ellie kind of like stops herself, because she's like, "I'm sorry, I get that." But once again, they're both just frustrated because they miss him. And also, it's just like, this is all they kind of have, is that revenge. And so now it's a council meeting that's going to be held to determine what role they're going to make, and what they're going to do. You also have Jesse helping Ellie train, and he's also on the council now too. And Ellie's like, "Okay, so which way is this going to swing?" But he's like, "I can't talk about the votes ahead of time." But he does give her some pretty good advice. It's like, make whatever you want to say, write it. And she's like, "Why? That's stupid." It's like, "Yes, but you're angry right now and you want to get all your points across, and these people are not going to follow someone that's angry. So the next time the council meeting happens, everyone gives their input, including Scott, which they're like, Scott, shouldn't we stay on topic? He was like, well, this is supposed to be like a free, like everyone kind of bears their grievances. It's like, yes, but this is about the Seattle situation. Like, honestly, I don't really care about the Seattle situation. He was more so like sharing his grievances about like the food situation and growing crops and stuff. It's like, all right, let's move on. Then it was like Rachel. Rachel made it clear, like Joel meant a lot to us, but we lost so much, and we're gonna send 16 people out to get revenge. And even who's guarantees those 16 will come back? What happens in the time frame their way? These are perfectly good points because it's like it's not like the city's back to 100%. You know, maybe later down the road we could revisit this, but who knows? You'd still need all hands on deck, especially considering even if you rebuild, you're still short a ton of people. Interestingly enough, it ended up being Seth who talks next, and he's the one that stands up and he's like, this is some BS. They came in here and they killed one of our own. Because what are you going to do when they come back and they kill more? Because they're going to come back and they're going to laugh at us. And that's where you enter this interesting conundrum, because the question is, now that Abby got her lick back, now that she killed Joel, would there be any reason for the WLF to make their way to Jackson? It's like they're aware of it, sure, but would the WLF have any reason to go after them? Maybe to raid them of their supplies and stuff. That, I mean, obviously that'd be a very bloody operation, but Abby's crew did check the place out, so they know the ways in and out. I mean, granted, they couldn't handle it on such a small scale with their crew, but considering what we see of the WLF, I don't know. It is something to think about. Like, they probably wouldn't mess with you, but the problem is they do know where you are now. So that's kind of like some group that came here, got their revenge, you know. I don't know. It begs to question, you know, like, would Abby and them come back? I mean, it might not even be Abby's choice. It might be that decision might be taken from her in that regard. So, but Seth is talking about like, right, you guys are pathetic. Like, he just chews into them for this. He's like, what happened? And you even see Abby and Dina. Everyone's kind of shocked that Seth would take a stand in this regard. But, I mean, we don't know enough about Seth to understand why he did what he did in that moment. But I think it's also because, like, he feels bad for Ellie going through what she's going through, and she's had to wait all this time to not be able to get revenge for the one person that, like, was taken from her, the one person that meant the world, who meant everything to her. He was her only family. I mean, yes, she has Tommy, but, like, and Maria and their kid, but it's still, it's not the same. You know, it's not the same as what her and Joel had. I mean, there's even that line. It makes me think about that line from episode 6 of season 1, where she was just like, I mean, once again, it's also from the game, too, was the whole line of, if you left, like, I'd be just as scared if I was with anybody else. And that, you know, that, what immediately made me think of that scene was when she was in, like, smelling his clothes and she broke down crying. It immediately made me think about that speech she had given Joel. But yeah, like, Seth made his point and Ellie made hers. She tried to be like, no, it's not for revenge. I'm doing this for justice. This isn't about me. This isn't about Joel, but this is about us, because the walls didn't keep us safe. It was each other. We're each other's strength. We're what made it so we made it through this. And one of our own was taken from us. And that wasn't an attack on an individual. That was an attack on us. So we have to come together. But whatever decision the council make, I'll stick with it. She did it, did not curse, kept it as cordial as possible to get her point across, but sadly the vote didn't go her way. It was 8-3. 8 for no, 3 for yes. I'm assuming the way they looked, Jesse, Maria, and Tommy. Granted, Tommy and Jesse most likely. I don't know if it was Maria, because Maria could have easily gone either way, but we'll never fully know where everyone voted, but I'm sure that will probably come up conversation-wise later. So Ellie's frustrated, dude. It's like the thing she's been aiming for and wanting this. She said she'd be okay with it either way, but it's like, we know that was a lie. I even love the scene after that council meeting was adjourned was Gail and Tommy. And I thought it was interesting. They had that conversation about oh, that liar. And then Tommy's like, no, there's a difference between lying and liar. Lying and being a liar. And Gail's like, oh, I know. And in fact, Ellie's a liar. Like, it's clear that girl will say whatever she needs to say to get what she wants. And Tommy's biggest concern is, like, I know my brother and I see too much of my brother in Ellie. The fact is, my brother would try to justify any actions and come up with any excuse and justification for doing what he did. But when in actuality, he was just lashing out. He was a man that lost his daughter and he needed something to hit. He needed someone to kill. He was mad at the world and he carried that with him with everything that he did. He just tried to make excuses for why he was lashing out when that's all he was. And Gail says, you think your brother had that kind of influence? Because he's like, yeah, I'm afraid Ellie's going down the same paths as my brother. But I thought it was interesting where Gail was like, she's like, I think in the grand scheme of things, she's like, nurture plays a much smaller role than people think. She's like, whatever path Ellie was on, it was already there by nature. And the fact is, she's like, I think your brother and her walked side by side. Which I should also note, I didn't meant to bring this up earlier too. That just kind of makes me think, well, they're not walking side by side anymore technically because, well, in the intro, because it's just Ellie by herself. I was curious if they were going to change it, and boy, oh boy, did they do that. So I thought that was such an interesting thing because as she's like, oh, as like a psychologist or whatever, like I forgot, like she said like, oh, as someone who studied this for 40 years and been in this profession for 40 years, let me give you some advice. You can't save you can't, some people can't be saved. And that's, there's also that there's layers to that because it is a thing of, it's that thing of you can't save everyone, which is true, you can't. And he's in a position where he wants to save her. This is, you know, it's like she's his responsibility now that Joel is gone. That's passed on to him. I mean, it's ironic, isn't it, that in episode 6 he was trying to give that responsibility to Tommy, but then he took that responsibility back and left with her. But now it's like, ironically, you know, all these years later, the situation being what it is now, he didn't intend for it to happen, but now Tommy ended up having to take her in, and he just wants what's best for her. And he doesn't want the path his brother was on is what ultimately led to where he is now, and he doesn't want Ellie to repeat that. So, I mean, I even love Gail keeping it real like that because it is just kind of like, it is that thing, like I said, you can't save everyone. You can't save those who don't want to be helped type. You can't help those who don't want to be helped type of thing. She doesn't say that, but that's kind of like the typical go-to. And it's like, but do you really accept that? Are you, in your attempts to try and help someone, are you making things worse in the long run? It's such a complicated thing. And even her way of saying like, oh, I don't even have a therapist to talk to myself. That's who I, as a therapist, who I would talk to kind of ease myself. But nope, I'm everyone else's therapist. I don't have any professional to talk to because I'm the only one in Jackson. So it's quite the conundrum. But then we have Ellie getting locked and loaded and ready to go. But she doesn't really have a plan. She would have just gone off on her own with no direction, which feels befitting considering like she's always like, Joel's always kind of taken the lead and she's kind of followed his step. I mean, at least back in season 1, and now this is her on her own and she herself is a little lost and directionless without him. So luckily she has Dina to be like, yo, this is where we'd go, get this and this, put it inside of like, you only make sure you can carry this much, we're going to take this with us. She's the one with the actual plan, not Ellie, because Ellie's just driven by like, once again, try to say it's justice, but it's like, no, we know what it is. It's revenge. You want get back, you know, and you want to take Abby down. You want to make everyone pay. And so I even love Dina being like, oh, when Ellie puts the gun behind, like the moment she did it when she picked up Joel's gun, I immediately thought of it too. But then Dina brings it up later on, it's like, oh, you're going to shoot your damn ass off. And she's like, oh, I've heard that before. It's like literally what Joel told her back in episode 4 of season 1 not to do that because she'll shoot her ass off. I was like I said, the moment she took his gun back at the house and did that, I immediately thought of that scene. So I love that they even kind of reference it in that regard. But, they've got everything, and Dina's like, I'm not going to tell Jesse because he's too much of a, he's very a strict stickler for the rules, so we can't really trust him with this. But she did turn to someone else for supplies and help. That someone, Seth. I kind of had a feeling it was going to be because he's like, oh, I'm one of the people that believes in the cause. Oh, this person was on guard duty, but she's letting this slide because she's part of the cause. And it's like, us? It's like, you're the one that said us, Ellie. So I was just keeping to it, like people who believe in what you're doing. Gave her a better rifle to go on her journey and sends her off. You know, kind of, they have a handshake. There's kind of this mutual respect of like, go and kind of get this done. before all this, there was the situation with, I think they're called the Scars. I don't actually know who they are. These people with the scars on their face. I feel like I vaguely remember them, not necessarily fully from the game. I remember like one of the first like gameplay cinematic trailers for the game had Ellie facing off against this group. I think I don't know if they are the Scars. I don't. Once again, they're a group I'm not that familiar with. Hell, even the Wolves, I wasn't that really. Huh? Is it Washington Liberation Fighters? Is that what they are? Is that what LF is? Once again, I'm getting so caught up on that. Um, but yeah, they kind of have a prophet who's no longer around. But it's like, right, we are trying to escape from war and try to find a new home. And the little girl's asking for a hammer. He's like, oh, does it make you feel safe? And he's like, well, no, like the thing that's going to make you feel even safer than a hammer is kind of them finding, like I said, a home. But as they were walking, they get warnings about wolves coming and they hide. And later on, when Ellie and Dina catch up, find all of them murdered. And you're like, damn. And Dina comes back throwing up, and it's like, because it wasn't just all of them that was killed, it also included the little girl. Now immediately you're like, was it the actual wolves? They said wolves, but that doesn't necessarily mean it was the WLF. It could have been, but because there was a whole, Ellie notices like there is a whole bunch of different ammo, so it could have been a completely different group that did that. But this whole thing did set Dina even more solidifying. It's like, if they were willing to do this to like, even children, it's like, fuck these people, we're going to take them down. Like, she was already motivated enough. And this is something I thought was interesting, and I heard this from people who, once again, a little more about the game. Dina wasn't solidified in her whole going after Abby and them until after she slept with Ellie, I believe. I remember someone saying, once again, I don't remember. Because like, I think I said this in episode 1, like in episode 2, like, I don't think Dina had, like, the relationship Dina has with Joel in the TV show, I don't believe that really was a thing in the first game. I mean, in the actual game. So, but I could be misremembering. Plus, I also don't have the full context of the game, so that there might be flashbacks that showcase like, no, it was a thing. But I feel like I always remember her interactions with Jesse and Ellie, but I don't remember her really interacting with Joel at all. But I don't know. They even talked about the first person they killed, which I even love. Ellie was like, yeah, the first one's a little bit of fucked up story, so we're not tackling that. We know what that story is, that being Riley, and especially where her and Dina are, which is also interesting, meaning like, despite how close they are, Ellie's never told Dina that. I mean, to be fair, even Gail said it herself, that it is the only person that Ellie was ever really honest with and told everything to, for the most part, was Joel. And now they're gone. Now that he's gone, she doesn't, but knowing that, it's interesting that she never confided the whole Riley story, because she obviously confides that story to Joel at the very end of season 1. But it's interesting that in all this time, like, she's never confided that into Dina. So, but she talks about the first person she ever killed. She says it's Brian, which is interesting because we know she didn't kill Brian. Joel actually did it, but I guess it's just to make herself seem more badass or whatever. It's like, technically he wasn't the first person because I think the argument could be like, the first person she ever really, like, not talking about Riley, but after that, like, I'd say like the first person she ever killed after that would have to be like, because I don't think she would it be James, the character that Troy Baker played in episode 8? That might be the first person she killed outside of Riley, because once again, Joel killed Brian. So I get, it was also to make it so that Ellie didn't have to live with, like, right, she paralyzed him, he probably would have bled out from the wound, maybe not, but at the very least, it wasn't on Ellie. That's why he made sure he was the one that did it. It's like, no, like, I'm the one that killed him, not you, type of thing. So, but yeah, like I said, I think it's interesting that she's deciding to revisit history like that. I mean, to be fair, like, even if you don't count the Brian situation, like I said, I do believe episode 8 would be the first time she's ever killed anyone. It'd be James and the creepy cannibal other dude, and that's a story you also don't want to tell either. So Brian is the least of the effed up stories to tell. So they also had that moment inside the tent, which the whole conversation of like, right, you're gay, I'm straight. How did my kiss fare? And it's like, you were a six. She's like, bullshit. I know I was better than that. And it's like, well, and it's like, yeah, like you were a little drunk, I was a little high, like I know it didn't mean anything, but I just wanted to grade on the whole scale of it all. But then she talks about like, she went back to Jesse and it's like, do you ever notice how sad Jesse is? And she's like, I don't know why, because he never tells me why, but she's like, it's something that she feels like is so deep inside of him that maybe that's just the way he is. And Ellie's like, why would you say that? She's like, because if it's not, that means whatever sadness he has is because of me. And it's like, oh, that is, that is, it's kind of a fucked up thing to almost be like, oh, I hope your sadness is something unrelated to me, because if not, that means I'm the reason why you're sad. So, but also leaving Ellie with the whole element of, yeah, but I also wasn't that high when we made out. So taking some solace in that. Once again, it just kind of makes me think of episode 4 when they're kind of sleeping outside in episode 4, as well as when they're in Kansas City in the building sleeping before they get jumped by Henry and Sam. But either way, they finally make their way to Seattle and they see how ragged it is. And they're like, well, there's only a few of them. We're going to wipe them out. But then we see the real scale of the wolves. And they got military vehicles. They're decked out in body armor and decked out in weapons. Like, they look like a military unit. They look like Fedra pretty much. So I mean, it makes sense. The Fireflies in general took on Fedra, but this particular unit, I guess, they either ended up absorbing a lot of Fedra after they took over, or they ended up wiping them out and just stealing their equipment. Whatever the case may be, Ellie and Dina think they're going in to wipe out a small squad when it is a full-blown military unit. Like I said, vehicles, some with like full-blown mounted guns on them. So it's going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. There's one scene in particular I have in my head about what might be coming up, but I'm not going to say anything. If it ends up happening, whenever it does happen, I feel like it might happen next episode, but if it happens beyond that, I'll comment on the scene that I was thinking of at the time. But like with Dina and Ellie here, I'm like, there's a particular scene where I'm like, I feel like I remember from the game that I'm like, this seems like it would, I think that scene's going to come up now, but we'll have to wait to see where the show ends up taking us going forward. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.